And you go lay down. Awesome. Sounds good. And now I'm going to go ahead and screen share. And when it tells me, host now, good. Hey, cutie. All right, let me figure. Oh, there it goes. I finally got my dialog box. Figure out how to do it. So I can do application level or I can do screen level. And I'll just do screen level. Awesome. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Awesome, possum. Sounds good. Okay, and I can get this thing like that so that I can actually see human expression, which is useful. All right, okay. I don't really like where that cam is. So I'm gonna move it. There we go. I think this is, yeah, this will work a little better. Oh. Gojira! And if you're old like me, you actually remember that. I think he's coming this way. Gojira! Run, people running. All fake. You can see the back. Awesome. Love those. Huge fan of Japanese horror flicks. We're keeping that in. We're legally required to keep this in this video, sir. Okay. All right. Standing in power. So similar shtick as before, where the meditational content, which is what we're doing now, is the meditational content for the sigilization, right? And today we're going to deal with systems of 8. Now, have I already shown you the Magician's Companion?
I don't believe so.
All right. Hold that thought, young lady. I'll be right back.
Okay.
The Chihuahua.
Alex said to read the chat box.
Alex did? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Chats. Wow. Oh. Amazing. All right. Let me see. Is that the most current message? That is. You are amazing. Have a wonderful class. Good, good, good. All right. Sounds great. Sounds fabulous. All right, girly. So, the part of the inspiration for this series of classes was this man's work. So it's called The Magician's Companion. Okay. A practical and encyclopedic guide to magical and religious symbolism by, it's backwards anyways, Bill Whitcomb. And it's in the, if you look in the practical sigilization outline of classes in the class material, this book is mentioned in the suggested reading for the overall class. Now, what's really amazing about this book is It's written by a chaos magician. Now, when you start moving around in this world long enough, you'll run into some of these people, Jackie. The chaoticians, as they prefer to be called, think of magic from an operational standpoint. So their primary interest in the exercise of magic is 100% in the results that they achieve by its use. So they're very accretionary when it comes to technique, and they're happy to plunder any technique from any culture, any time period, regardless of whether you think it's appropriation or not. They don't give a fuck. If it works, they use it, period. And one of the things that the chaoticians don't do is eschew science. They embrace it 100% and completely, as well as scientific rigor and philosophical rigor. Some of their practitioners have been the largest contributors to the corpus magical writing period. And this movement started in the 1960s. So from the 60s to today, they've already made one of the most significant contributions to magic. They are just dynamite folks, right? So Mr. Wickham wrote this book, and the way he approaches it, here, this isn't going to work with this blur. I don't think you can see Jade, so you can. Good. The way this works is he does system of zero, the void, and has an entire chapter devoted to magical systems that wrap themselves around a concept of zero, including suggested readings, meditations, diagrams, you name it. Then he moves on to, oh, I missed it. I missed the one. There it is. Then he moves on to the one, unitary consciousness, right? Anything that is singular by its nature, and magic that's related to it, very specifically. Next, dualities. Next, triplicities. Next, quadruplicities, etc., all the way up to, what does it get himself up to? I think he goes all the way, he stops himself. Oh, yeah. See, I think he stops himself at 91. Yes. By the time he gets to 91, the only way to adequately express the information is in a tabular format. Columns and columns, lists and lists of correspondences, with, of course, the chapter on how to use this in a magical sense, as well as magical squares for each of the aethers in an OTO practice, as well as where these come from, how to use them, as well as goetic information. So if there's anything about divinities, angels, critters, what was that? One of the other inspirations for this class. Pronoia, the opposite of paranoia. And in it, Mr. Rob Brzezinski, Brezny, Brezsny. You try and pronounce it. Good luck to you. And it really covers this idea of you know, okay, we can all buy into paranoid ideas. What happens if we go just the opposite direction and we start believing them? Not believing them in a practical or a pragmatic sense, but entertaining these notions, all notions, and embracing them as full of, at the very least, information, whether that's a projection, whether that's internal, whether that's part of reality, whether that's a dialogue carrying itself out in the universe. The whole underpinning to it, the whole underpinning of paranoia is an idea of encroaching chaos and senselessness. The idea of pronoia being just its opposite, the encroachment of meaning and its processing through us, a potentially holistic and unitary consciousness that also has a physical body and a soul. Damn. Pretty awesome. So those books really kind of inspired how this class came together. 8 itself is a pretty awesome deal. Do you have a tarot deck that you use?
I use I guess it's like a tarot deck or oracle cards. It's a Native American based one.
Oh, Native American based, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not classic tarot, then it would not adhere to the rule of 8. However, if they are constructed on a similar system to tarot, where there are elementals and numbers and they go through that, then I would enjoin you to, as a potential meditation for your future, pull all of the 8s. Just pull them out of each suit, pull the 8s, lay them out in front of you. And if it has a trump suit, pull out the 8, numbered 8 of trump, and put the trump above it, and then the 8s below. And you'll see, this is how I taught Kiddo. She took my upper arcana class, that the story is really between the cards. How do you get from this card to this card? How do you get from here to here? How do you get from here to here? How did they get to each other? Rearrange them. How did they get to each other? Rearrange them. How did they get to each other? The story in tarot is always between the cards.
Yeah, it's
Just
definitely not like those sets, not like a regular tarot set of cards. There's like 42 cards, but it's not like not like the cups and the saucers.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not.
That's right. So are they numbered?
They are numbered.
Yeah, pull your 8 then.
Okay.
And yeah, and look for ideas of being visualized in the picture, power.
Okay.
Awesome. So I wonder if I should run you through this. This would be really fun. If you'd be willing to do an exercise, I would love to run you through it.
Sure.
All right. You can stand. Do you have room in your room, in that room, do you have room to take 8 large steps?
No.
No, you don't. Okay. All right.
I'm a city girl.
All right. Then you'll have to do this on your own, where you can do that, like in a park.
Okay.
Okay. And what I would like you to do is when you get to the park, I want you to just imagine that you're standing in a ring. And it is big enough that if you take a large step, you'll wind up out of the ring.
Okay.
Yeah. Completely. Right? Big step puts you outside that ring, where there is another ring. And there are 8 of them. So once you see one go online, you should be able to see all 8 go online, right?
Okay.
You should be able to visualize them in your head. And if you can't visualize them, you know what 8 steps are. And each time you land your foot, you can visualize a new circle. And know that as you do any step forward, You are increasing your personal power. And what does that mean? That means power of every kind. That's sexual power, personal power, monetary power, physical power, mental power, spiritual power, all power, right? Then when you step one ring forward, you step forward in power. And imagine what your life will look like when you do that. So, okay, if 8 is I'm at the level of Jackie the goddess, like legit, goddess powers, whole 9 yards. That's 8. And 1 is where you are right now. Okay. So you step into each ring, and then you step backwards to each ring and really lay it out and breathe it in. Here's the most important part, Jackie. If you resist breathing, you're never going to do magic adequately. Period, period, period. You've got to fucking breathe. Everything moves in and out of the body on breath. So saturate your body with oxygen. It'll clarify your mind. It'll calm and still your body. It'll help you reach ujjayi, union, yoga, yoke, whatever you want to call it. It'll help you be what witches strive to, all witches strive to be, here and now. Right? So never, always just, nobody sees you, nobody hears you, nobody gives a fuck. Breathe deep when you take each of the rings, right? And take each of the rings, at least for a second. The first time I ran through this exercise, I could not stay in 8. Couldn't. It took quite a while before I could stay in 8.
Why?
Isn't that the God? It's a lot
Okay.
to move in and through and out of your body. It's a lot to process.
Who
is that? What does that look like? What would my existence become if I were elevated to the point of God? Wow. Wow. I still can't, I still go through periods, actually. There are times where I can step into 8, times where I can't step into 8, right? By the way, you can find this exercise in Evolutionary Witchcraft by T. Thorne Coyle. I've mentioned her before. She was my teacher and Jade's teacher for a long time. And anyways, she calls it rings of power. She uses a different number, but I'm using 8. So step into each of the 8. 8 is God. 1 is where you are now. And you can even just count your steps to know where your rings are. Eventually, you get to the place where you can take 1 step, solidify your ring. You know where the rest are. You can see them in your head. You can see them on the ground, clear as day, right? You know where they are. So let yourself do that. Breathe deeply. And with each step backwards and forwards, just find where you are with them. The whole point of this is not, I'm going to take over the universe. No, it's not. It's to find out, is there room to grow with something, and how far? Before you are, as the write-up for the class says, standing in your perfect right personal power. It will help you know your worth, right? To more than just yourself, to your community of believers, people who move in the same circles, to the larger sphere of your culture, and to the larger sphere of humanity and time. It'll help you kind of really just navigate that. And hopefully what you wind up doing in the journaling of this is begin altering in any way your personal habits for the day. A great psychic once told me, organize your day and you have organized your life, which is true. All large life changes happen in slow, small, incremental change applied over time. Gentle, gentle, gentle. So this is an exercise you can take away. Please try and do this exercise before we come back for another class.
Okay.
If you like the exercise, you can repeat it for each casting. And that would be the ideal, is instead of just building up to and casting, now we have pre-game work. Seeing where this is going?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So the pre-game work is keep your personal manifestation goal or sigil intent itself, and you're going to layer onto it this standing in power work, right? So you'll do your 8 cast. Next day you do your journaling. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that's added homework. Ha ha ha. Guess what? When you take on a personal practice, it changes you. It's awesome.
It does.
So that's the standing in power. And I want to go to the class material for 8. And we're going to cover that now. And this one is particularly dear to me. It is and this is also in the Magician's Companion, though this is material that has been worked and reworked from Eastern mysticism since the writing of like the Vedas. So love you long time. And that's the Eightfold Path. Now, if you start digging deep into Hinduism, you'll find that the Eightfold Path is really a guiding principle to each of the different yogas or physical practices. They are the exoteric mysteries of Hinduism, just as we've talked before about esoteric versus exoteric, just as exercises that you do here are exoteric, outward mysteries of the craft. They are. Doing the sigilization is like, that should be automatic for you, right? And it will be, right? I always tell my students, you can spend a lifetime learning about tarot, and so you will, and so you will. Because it's true. Any of these individual practices, whether it's I Ching, sigilization, whether it's any of these eightfold paths, like meditation and concentration, induction of trance, sacred rites and ritual performance, opening of the gates, which is, and I love this because this actually bled into my original tradition, which was Alexandrianism. And that's the use of wine, drugs, incense, and all things that arouse Kundalini, including psychotropics, mind-opening substances like mushrooms. Is in their caveat there. It's interesting because a witch doesn't shy from any of that. As a matter of fact, I teach a whole advanced class on using entheogenic drugs and how to contain them in a magical space and put them to use towards your own magic. They're excellent for as a mild, what's called an emetic. In other words, a tiny hair of the dog, the bitcha, right, is an emetic. In other words, a thing that appears to go the opposite direction, but then you have a slingshot effect forward, which is quite true because entheogens break your habitual framework, mental framework, crumble it, break it down, challenge it, batter against it. Some of them do a better job. Acid is really rough, hard, and the come down is terrible. And it takes 36 hours. It's a huge commitment. Mushrooms is awesome. It's about a 4-hour ride. And if you really put it to use and give it a container and some work to do, okay, I'm stuck with this in my life. You change your eyes and the universe changes. And it's that simple, right? So change the apparatus, change your eyes, see it with new eyes, and you will. And it'll break those habitual frames and you'll be able to make insights and breakthroughs as long as you're focused on the work. It's awesome. Dance. which is quite true. Dance includes any form of physical exercise. This is meat and potatoes of magic for me. I get on the treadmill or I go for a run, and I talk to myself about my sex and where it is and what it's about, and then my pride, and then my power, self. I'm like, what am I talking about? Sex, pride, self, power. There it is. My passion, and the connectivities between them. Right? Am I having sex with pride in self, empowered by my own passion, sex? Where is my pride right now? What am I taking pride in my life right now? What defines myself right now? What do I perceive as power right now? And sex is a bigger definition than just like fucking, right? Not the operational bullshit. I'm talking about the real drive, right? The intent to introduce more complex structures into the universe, and I'm the vehicle through which it moves. So that is sex. Right. And it's bigger than that, even. It's bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than even like a sexual drive. Everything on the climbing frame of the geology of this planet reproduces via and propagates via sex. Period. Period, period, period. There's the framework, geology. There's what lives on it, sex, and all of her manifest forms. So, right, I'm on the treadmill. I'm running down the street. Sex, pride, self-power, passion, sex, pride, self-power, passion. Wait a minute. What am I passionate about right now? Do I even have a passion? Can I rekindle my passion? Do I need to rekindle my passion? Is this too passionate? Because I can back off if I've got to. Can I cool that off? If I had to cool that off for the balance of the rest of my life, could I? That's magic. That's everyday magic. And it's running. And the best part is I put on pounding fucking EDM techno music, and it's dancing too. I get to shake my ass, wearing the cutest little fucking athletic gear. Mama, shaking it down the street. Oh, and it's awesome. I get to touch the plants and get bump ups, and sometimes a car honks. And I'm like, yeah. Runners, we're weirdos. Anyways, control. Now, control is not, I'm not talking about control in the sense of controlling people. No. Though that is a part of control, right? When I talk about social controls, it's very much control, right? So, but in this particular sense, it's like sort of the opposite of a physical expression, a physical hindrance. So you want to really learn what it is to be blind, go around with a blindfold for 3.5 weeks, never take them off. They actually do that. There's an apartment building near my house where they have an institute for the blind, and all of their teachers have to spend a certain amount of time visually impaired. So they have to do they have to put on blinders and learn to walk with a stick and learn to navigate and take a bus and get to work and all of it. So they can teach the kiddos how to do it. It's awesome. It's a really neat program. That's it. So breath control, fourfold breath. Remember I talked about the box breath and expanding it? That's control. The funny part is with breath control, you're going to love this. It's not about control at all. It's about surrendering. You can elongate and expand box breath more by surrendering to the process of the breath than by trying to control it. And in fact, the more you try and control your breath, the more it goes out of whack. But the more you relax into it and slow down, the longer your inhale, the longer your pause, the longer your exhale, the longer your pause. And it's this awesome positive reinforcement loop. Oh, that's a great idea. Put that in your noggin and let it spin around for a while. Just the idea of a positive reinforcement loop. Awesome. This is also things like carezza, which is a sexual practice used in tantra. So and many of these ideas like control, breath control, blood and posture control, physical forms of yoga. So that includes asanas, that includes heated yoga and asana yoga and restorative yoga, right? Put your body in this position to get this spiritual and or mental, physical, psychic benefit, right? And it does, it works beautifully. Yoga practitioner right here, yogini, love it. And one of our greatest magicians of all time, Aleister Crowley, was a breath yogini. He was brilliant at what's called pranayama yoga, which is the intake of breath and outtake of breath, and using it in very specific ways. Out one nostril, then the other nostril, then in one nostril, in the other nostril, using your mouth in various ways, a sipping straw breath, all the way to tiger's breath. In old school witchcraft, the cords were used for this kind of magic. Now, there's this awesome tradition in most American forms of witchcraft called taking the measure of the witch. Happens at initiation. And you put 9 knots in a string, and there's a ritualistic phrase for each knot, and the knot represents the unique biometric signature of you, based on how big around is your head, how big around are your 2 wrists, how big around are your 2 ankles put together, how far around are your knees when put together, how far around is the cradle of your hips, right? And that piece of knot magic gets woven into your cords of initiation. Not magic, right? That you bind yourself and your physicality, mentality, spirituality to this life way, this practice, right? Other things like we used to have a thing, the Seox Wiccans and Buckley's American Wiccans have a practice called Witch's Cradle, which is awesome. It's a sensory depth machine you can build yourself. You wear a hood, and so you can't see any light whatsoever, and you have breath tubes coming out of like a face mask thing, and you are pretty much bound to a suspended rigid frame, roped in like there are various ways. You can do a wrap method, you can do a strapping method, you can do any number of methods. But essentially you swaddle the person and then like fix them to this rigid structure so that they can't get out of the swaddling. And then you suspend them. You either hang them in a doorway or like a stairwell. And yeah, they hang out. We have things called, of course, you may recall the movie Altered States. Do you remember that movie? Where he used he used the sense depth tanks and had visions of American, like not American, but human pasts, human present, human future, and then he became like energy being, and like it was so stupid. If you haven't seen it, it's awesome. It's called Altered States. It's so retarded and fabulous at the same time. It is absolutely not the experience you will ever have in a sensory depth tank. But it's awesome, Hollywood.
So now, when they do this witch's cradle, what happens if the person's like claustrophobic?
Oh, there are 8 paths. That path may not be for you.
Okay.
Right. So the great right, which is more than just the union of male and female, either symbolically or literally. Now you can see this, of course, in the blessing of cakes and ale in a traditional, like every iteration of witchcraft ceremony has some kind of sharing of usually a bread and wine or a substitute thereof. And the blessing of the wine itself, or the drink, whatever the drink is, right, which is the menstruum of the goddess, right? You take an anathema and you send this blade into the cup that holds the wine. And that itself is an act of blessing. And of course, it's a penis and a yoni, period, end of sentence. Now that whether you don't take that in an operational sense, that's the masculine meeting the feminine. That's the dark meeting the light. That's the cold meeting the hot. That's the everything meeting the nothing. That's the want meeting the satiety. That's the, right? It is all things that bring love and pleasure, period. And it can be literal sex between two humans who identify polar and are invested with the divine, who have already drawn down. So you transpossess and you have sex. It's awesome. Super fun. Guess what? You'll get downloads like you don't believe. You think you get downloads doing this shit? No, mama. Pick your poison with the great right. Have fun. Give it a shot. So, these 8 paths, as they are written here, are absolutely a magical user's view. There's a reason they're in the Magician's Companion, right? The 8 yogas, 8 limbs of yoga, right, are a little bit different, but they have some very similar parts. Breath control, withdrawal of senses. It's almost like they thought of this. They didn't. Here's the thing. These, concentration, meditation, absorption, union or integration, samadhi, which means succumbing to the ecstasy of divine investment, transpossession, right? External disciplines, the yamas, which are like work, cleaning your house, calling your mother, right? Internal disciplines, these are mental controls, right? This is like, instead of insulting him, I'm going to talk about my experience and what would improve the situation or solve the business problem. Right? So postures, seated meditation, right? So these 8 paths, and these are simplifications, by the way. External disciplines also includes like volunteerism and volunteer work, outreach work, which if you wind up pursuing any religious path, there is always volunteerism is wrapped in somehow. There's always an aspect of get fucking out of your own goddamn ego and go be selfless human and do something good. Right? For the whole tribe. Always, always. And that's included in the yamas. And each of these, right, so they have larger meanings. So the early people who constructed Western mystical traditions as they exist today all studied Eastern thought and practice. Right. So it should not be a surprise that there is a great deal of overlap in Western and Eastern tradition when it comes to these. Yeah, awesome. All right, so that is an approach to 8. There's also, the Tao Te Ching. It makes me want to touch my nipples. It does. And I just did, so look at that. It's awesome. These are ancient Chinese glyphs that really, it's funny how, and the chaos magicians love this shit, right? It starts with a unitary energy signature, a single line, which represents yang. And then there's the yin, which represents a broken line. And then you put them together and suddenly you have the 1 and 1, 2 become 4. in the organizations that you can put these in. Then when you add another line, somehow they become 8 and multiply themselves with all of the possibilities of just this, as if they were dip switches. And do you know what a dip switch is?
No.
Have you ever had a plug-in timer where you had to push the little pins?
No.
All right then.
Sorry.
Eventually you will run into some kind of an electronic where you have to use a dip switch. A dip switch is awesome. All it is a open or closed circuit. That's all it is, right? And you manually set the circuit. So like a home timer, you have an electronic version or you have a manual version. And the manual version literally is powering like this clock that just turns a dial. And what the dial has is for every 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, 1 minute, depends on how good the timer is, dip switches. And you can set these so as the dial turns, right, there are these circuits that you have pushed as pins for each hour. So you want the lights out between midnight and 6 o'clock period, right? So you push those pins, right, from midnight to 6. And the rest of the time you want it on. And then you plug your light into the timer box and plug that into the wall. And what it does, instead of actually having an electronic timer, which uses close to the same amount of energy, no matter what, whether it's turning off the light or turning on the light, with these manual timers, it doesn't use any energy except to power the dial, right, which is very low cost, and it doesn't turn you leave the light on. It turns off at the circuit. So it is using no power when the light is off. They're cool. And you do them with dip switches. Well, these lines and broken lines are very similar to dip switches, where it's either there's an energy circuit, the male, or the circuit is broken. And there is the possibility of a circuit, the female, yeah. And there are 2 different approaches to the world, the masculine approach, the feminine approach, language versus action, power versus powerlessness. And I don't say powerlessness in the sense of vulnerable, right? Yeah. Quiescent would be a better choice of word, right? Available, right? And how they fit together. Now, the awesome part is when you add another set of 3, you wind up with the 64, right? This is 64-bit technology that you're watching me on. Did you know that? So instead of being a base count of 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's our base count. Yeah, and 10 times 10 is 100, and 100 times 100, 1,000, and 1,000 times 1,000, 100,000, right? A million, right? That's how we do our progressions. It's with a base of 10. Well, that's not a clock at all. It's a base of 60. And what happens when you get a base of 64? Here's what your computer uses, because that's how storage for computers works. It's awesome. So the longest minimal piece of information that your PC can process has 64 lines or broken lines. Bits. This web of overlapping synchronicitous expressions becomes almost at a certain point like a fractal. where you see again and again and again and again an expression of the same ideas in different cultures, different ways, different nomenclatures even. Nomenclature means that set of specific terms or words that describes this knowledge area. And chaoticians fucking love it, gobble it up, and create collating cables that are expressions of exactly that, right? These amazing models of 72. Yes. Which exist in many, many different cultures because there is a universal truth of the division of 360 degrees. 72 is one of the smallest and easy multipliers, divisors, in 360. And it roughly corresponds to 1/10 of the length of the Nile. What the ancient Egyptians called gnomes, but each one had a god. So anyways, there are other expressions, right? These expressions, the actual 8 glyphs of the Tao Te Ching, are super freaking awesome. Let's get that out of there and let's yes. Oh, Tao. Oh, Lao Tzu, you bastards. They're not even going to give us the real shit. What an asshole. So, what are they? No. They are, okay. I don't remember. So I don't remember all of them, but I remember many of them. There's earth, air, fire, water. There's wood, metal, mountain. Can't remember. And the can't remember one, whatever the can't remember one is, right? So when they put them together, when they put together these ideas, they build more and more complex structures, right? That's kind of what we're doing here, what we're doing today with putting more and more complex structure around this idea of 8. Here's another one that I would enjoin you to just play with, the idea of not just the diurnal cycle of 24, where we also have 8 basic divisions, 4 that are obvious. There's the nadir, right, where the sun is directly above us, right? Its opposite at the other pole, where the sun's gone, directly on the other side of the planet. There's dawn and dusk, and our natural divisions of time fall halfway between each of those. Oh yeah, that's right. We wake up usually pre-dawn in winter, it's barely post-dawn in summer, and our work day transitions through one like a clock. Oh right, wait a minute. Yes, a different base number, same idea, right? That there are halfway marks, right? What's the halfway mark between 6 and midnight? Look at your clock. Anyways, here's another system of 8. The 8 holidays of contemporary paganism. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because there's, oh yeah, a whole little wild, awesome clock that goes on here, right? With Mabon and that awesome Samhain. You've got Beltane over here, and you've got Lunasa over there, and you've got right Eoster and Imbolc, and yeah, and they divide the year in this really easy way of about 6 weeks each, right? And it's funny because in 6 weeks, what can you do in your life? Modify completely a habit, any habit. What did I say about habits? Organize your day, you'll organize your life. Yeah. Boot camp used to be 13 weeks. The last week was all administrative.
Yes.
All of the programming and physical conditioning happen in 2 of these holidays. Because they know you can turn anyone around mentally, break them psychically, re-inculcate brand new worldviews and habits in 12 weeks, including physical conditioning. Mama. So here's another one, right? And when I teach, you can see in this awesome glyph, which acts like a mnemonic. Yeah, you can remember the general month, where the holiday lives. You can see that it actually corresponds, this whole side of the year corresponds with earth, hence the pentacle, fire, air, water. Look, the wheel of the year. Another system of 8. Yeah, that's our happy material for 8, which I'm still actually dynamite happy with. Again, if we were to like bring this back to concepts of power, seeing a thing in 8 parts, you have a pretty good grasp. If you really can see a system that complex, right? It's got a lot of moving parts, and your position in relation to it is either you're part of the cog or you're really master of the machine, right? Yeah. So keep 8, let 8 wear you, right? We're going to put 8 to work. Say, okay, 8, you're so awesome. What have you done for me lately? Ooh, 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 ooh. You don't have to do a dance number. All right. New page. New cup, new cup. Move down, move down. What's that from? You know what that's from? Fresh cup, move down, move down. Oh no. Good, that fell in. Oh, thank God. I knocked something off the table onto our brand new carpet. And it, of course, is raspberry like hoolie or something. Fucking retarded to get onto a brand new floor. All right. Please let all of this mash around in your head as you draw your sigil with 8 lines. Go. Yeah. I'm gonna grab a pen. Come on. You got to move it, move it. And, okay. when you've completed your drawing, vocalize the word yes. So I will be done very shortly. Just doing my pencil erasure now. One of the things I like to do is draw first in pencil, particularly a light, low numbered pencil. And that way I can redo it with a thicker line with permanent ink later, and then just erase the pencil line. And it helps me when I want to do iterations and change the entire drawing configuration, or if I fuck up. So I can get it right in the pencil and then just erase the bogus lines. And it almost reveals, it's really cool, the ink reveal later when it happens. Because you eliminate the noise. Okay, lady, hit me. What you got? Eight rings of, ooh, inspired by, I would presume. This is awesome.
It's inspired by it, but it's when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at like 8 bubbles of water.
Awesome. That's gorgeous. And it's a lovely shape that also is visually appealing and fascinating. So it'll be easy to cast.
Yeah, I've noticed that like the ones I've been casting have been like just it's easy to flow with them. It's not like difficult, you know, because I get it in my head of like what I'm hearing or what I'm feeling, and it's just like it just flows.
Well, that's awesome. And it, you know, it should. I think from my perspective, I want to stop sharing. Oh, was I not sharing? Stop sharing. There we go. All right. There we go. Yay. In my experience, the best sigils that I have ever cast are exactly the same way, Jackie, where they just kind of flow and organically happen out of like what the work that I need to do and how I'm approaching it. Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, I have to say this, by the way, that color pencil work that you did on yours from last week, I think I told you online, is dynamite.
Thank you.
Yeah, and really did. So, I find it interesting how the raw line sigil was compelling, but when you added the color to it, mama, it was almost like a trance in itself. It was gorgeous.
When I was sitting there and I was coloring, because it was just weird, because I was like, okay, should I color this? No, I'm not going to color. I'm going to leave it the way it is. And then all of a sudden, it's just like the hairs just started standing. It's like, okay, I got to color. And then I started hearing the music in my head, and I was like, okay, let me get my colors. Let me get my colors. Here we go. And I started going, and I was using colored pencils. I was using the heavier pens. I was using charcoal. I was using all of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, it was obviously beautiful. And I would imagine your casting, either that or the next, was super powerful.
They were.
Yeah.
It was interesting because on the very last day that I did it, that night I was having all these like weird, like psychedelic dreams and stuff.
Sure.
And those dreams the next day were coming like into effect of how they were like being portrayed into my head and stuff the night before. And it was just, it was a wild day the next day, the very last.
Magic.
Yeah, it was. It's interesting because I was speaking to my best friend about it and stuff, and I was telling him all about the classes and stuff.
Yeah.
And he understands some of it because he's had, different classes in college and stuff.
Other experience, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's just like blown away by how much I've grown since I've started taking this particular class.
Yeah. No, that's
and
fantastic.
It has a lot to do with the sigil and what I've been asking for. So.
Yes, Mama, what you want?
Oh, I love it. That is beautiful. It looks like a marble on the top coming down like a spiral. That is awesome.
Yeah. So that's going to be my casting this week.
Now, so we were actually talking about like sigils and stuff in the actual chat and stuff because I had seen online, how everybody has like a sigil for this or a sigil for that and stuff. And I'm like, is it something that people just like come up with? Okay, I'm going to have a sigil for love, or I'm going to have a sigil for, power. I'm going to have a sigil for this.
Yep.
Is there a right or wrong? Like, they talk about you put sigils on like jars, spells, and stuff like that.
That's right. I do.
I don't understand any of that just because, I'm just starting obviously out with this whole process. But
you bet.
Do you just draw?
Well, you can. There are any number of techniques. The most dominant technique is where you take, oh, honey. All right, so here you go. Pow, pow. I'm going to give it to you. So the most popular technique is you take a magic square. Do you know what a magic square is?
No.
Magic square is any square. So square of 4 divided into 4s, or a square divided into 9 or into 16 or into 36 or into 64. You're seeing this exponential growth, right? And you see how that happens in a square when you add just one more line, both directions. Wow, that's just like that Tao Te Ching weird shit. Yes, that's right. That looks like a fractal. Anyways, so the sum of any direction up or down or up or across equals the same amount. So it's like Sudoku, right? Where all of the digits on the top and this and here and here and here equal here and here and here and here. Okay. That's a magic square. So what you'll have is sum 22, 33, 44, 55, 66, 67, 77, right? And they're the same across.
Okay.
Yep. That's magic square. So you organize your numbers as random as fucking possible into a magic square. Then you write the intent of this mixed oil is to bring me better money opportunities in life, beginning today, period. And I want an opportunity every week, and I want to be able to recognize the opportunity as an opportunity, and I get to choose whether I want to take it, period. Now, you reduce that. So you take all those letters and you eliminate duplicates so that you have just the core letters for the statement. And you take a number correspondence chart. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And you do a numeric substitution. And then you, oh yes, Oh yes, it keeps going, right? So you do a numeric substitution for all this. Then you play connect the dots on your magic square with a piece of tracing paper. 3, 5, 7, 9, 14, 15. And that line is the sigil that you put on the outside of the oil container that you were going to sell in your shop for $50. It is made with gorgeous almond oil, almonds, abundance, and frankincense essential. To bump up the power, and a rolled up dollar bill, and a green citrine. And you're seeing where this is going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a drop of green food coloring, and don't forget your fucking tocopherols, please, so that it's shelf stable. And put it in a colored glass, and get fancy, gorgeous fucking label that has the sigil on it, and a description of, at the very least, the intent behind it and its use. And if you want to get crazy, you crazy kooky witch, then you can throw awesome things in there. Look, like not jackroot, astragalus. You can put astragalus in there, and then you don't have to use red, or you don't have to use, no, not astragalus, because that'll turn red. You can use like sage or basil, that'll pull out the green. It'll actually, the oils will extract the green from it. You can use any Achillea millefolium would be awesome, yarrow. Why? And you don't even use the yarrow stalk or the yarrow flower, but you would use the yarrow leaf, right? Because the leaf actually looks like it has a million fucking bladders or leaves on it. That hence the name millefolium, millions of leaves. Achillea millefolium. And it's a healing plant. Bitch. Dap. You can dap. Anyone dap. You can dap. Everyone can dap. Right? And yeah, so like that. So that's the classic technique. There are other techniques. However, when you look at like the goetic work, so if you start looking at like demons and their sigils, right? Which you will eventually. We all do. And it's fun to dabble and play. And you'll find one that you like, and you'll do the sigil and you'll play with it. And sure enough, your life will change. Just warning you. Anyways, the company we keep, and we witches, and anyways, their names, it gets even deeper, where there is like the eternal flower, right, which is just a king and queen scale color wheel designed in the shape of a rosy cross. Is it getting thick enough in here? And each of the petals has an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And you just do your like alpha reduction. You don't do a numeric substitution, then you just draw the lines over the rosy cross. This is OTO standard practice for sigil. And everyone uses it. Right? They don't even know that they're giving provenance to OTO tag, which is the really sad, right? Originally, if you go back to like John Dee and Edward Kelly, they weren't doing that. They weren't using any of this garbage. They were just doing a numeric substitution using a magic square, like they've been doing since ancient Greece.
That's intense.
I saw
a whole bunch of them on Pinterest. I was like, oh, that's pretty, that's pretty, that's pretty. And I'm like, I wonder if those are real though. Or are they just people just drawing little pictures to be drawing pictures?
And keep in mind, the answer is always yes and when it comes to sigilization, right? Some of the early works that I showed you of Andrew Chumley, I'm sorry, honey, he's off the map. He's like, map? Who needs a map? Fuck you. Uncharted Waters. And he was Uncharted Waters. The one that looked like it had Egyptian symbols and hieroglyphic characters and incredible like lines that just created organic structure and very strict lines that were very graphically. I showed you Chumley's work, right?
I think you've shown me.
Yeah. It's in the class material. That's right. Very first class. That's right. And so, in the first iteration of this series, on the first class, I actually say what's not in the box. Part of what I talked about was these very traditional means of obtaining them. Always it has to do, even if you look at like bind runes, it's the same shit, right? Where the runes themselves, you made a face. All right. So here you go, bind rune. So if you use runes at all, like Elder Futhar, right, for divination or casting, you know that they also have divinatory meanings, and they have sound correlations. There is a T, it's Tewaz, right? There is an F, it's Fehu, right? So there is an O, it's Othila. So you can spell out words as well as represent whole concepts and ideas. It's ideogrammatic writing system that may or may not have ever been a language, likely was not. They weren't used that way historically. What they were used as was kind of like a marking. That's not like a kiss your testosterone here, right? Mark your territory, lift the leg, right? Mark up this stone in ruins. And yeah, that's kind of someone marking their provenance was likely the reason why they created these rune stones and just have the runes, and that's it. They're not writing. The ones that do have writing actually look like inventories. 47 cattle, 57 houses, 37 oxes. You can find these all through ancient Egypt. As a matter of fact, most parchment wasn't used for sacred drawings at all. It wasn't used for art. The clay tablets and the papyrus rolls and they were used for inventories and censuses. 47 pounds of grain. So and so much of grain. Oh, so and so checked out so much grain. So and so checked out so much gold. Pharaoh got blah blah blah. Tithe is this much. When religion and business were one and the same with government. And we had kings who were mostly assholes and have no idea how they got there. And were not great administrators. It's always the overthrow governments that kind of get things right again. The Hyksos. Oh, set worshippers. Ow. It's another dap. Anyways. Where were we going with this? Oh, sigils. So runes. Oh, bind runes. That's right. So let's say you want to do some of the same work with Elder Futhar, right? And people do this all the time, where what they'll do is they'll pick 3 runes that represent the idiomatic or conceptual content of their intent. And then they'll fit the lines of the runes together so that the runes are still discernible within the overall linear structure, but it becomes a sigil. It becomes a glyph all its own and completely unique, and is an art form of its own, right? So, and what you're doing is you're taking these runes and combining them to bind the meanings together in a way that's unique to you. And then you use it as a mental touchstone to return over and over and over again that concept of casting. Shocker. So same tech, different tech, right? And some people, they're just like, I want a sigil. I want a heart and a sweet tart and emoji eggplant and yeah. Are they not legitimate? Here's the tea with magic, all magic. Jackie, explode your brain. Explode it. There is no right, there is no wrong. There is it works or it doesn't. Victor Anderson said, black magic is anything that works. White magic is poetry. Yup. anything that works. Remember I talked about the chaoticians, right? They'll appropriate anything if it works. Same concept. So what's really crucial in the, some magical practitioner, some magical lines, right? They care about, this is where you have the different houses. You have Slytherin and Gryffindor and Ravenclaw and yep, they're real lines just like that. Like all they care about are the forms. Jade and I both have had contact with covens like that, where it's about the forms. It's about these words in this order and these actions and these things. This is how you do it. And if you don't do it like that, you're not a real witch. Period. There are others that focus on, like Fairy, thank you very much, who focus on the ecstatic nature and the effectiveness or efficacy of the spell. So it doesn't matter how you obtained it. If you created it yourself, all the better. And the efficaciousness is really the tell of the truth. You can go OTO about this and wrap science into it. And you don't even know if the spell works until you've done the spell for 47, 50, 100, 200 times. Because that's how they do this shit in the OTO. We're just doing 3. Imagine doing 40 of them. 40 castings. Go bigger, go home. Imagine an entire year of casting a sigil. Disciplined. That's OTO. That's how these kids work. And they journal everything, and then they go back through and they look for patterns. And they use any number of scientific methods to do that. You can use like word clouds based on frequency of occurrence of a word. You can do, seeing where this is going? Yeah. How deep do you want to go is really the question. I like going deep enough to get results. I don't want to do a whole line of coke off someone's dick. No. I'll take a little tiny bump, thank you, off a pretty little silver spoon. In other words, I want a bump. I don't want to go from 0 to coughing because it's too much, right? And that's how I do my sigil work. So the longest I've done a consistent casting was 40 days, every day for 40 days. And that was very specific working. I've done it a couple of times with my particular god, right? Where it's like, and it's awesome. It becomes like a dance, and I would layer things onto it. There had to be a ritual bath. There was a ritual bath salts. There was a ritual robe. There was temple time. There was these tools involved in these particular ways, always with scrying and some kind of a casting. And the casting was based on netters or mummified flags. Oh yes, mama. The Egyptians mummified flags. And that's the symbol of a god. 3 mummified flags. It means netter. N-T-R. God. Really, from their perspective, anything that was a larger concept that included this absolute truth of human existence. Storm. The desert storm. Called desert storm for a reason, right? Have you ever seen a desert storm? Check it. Yeah. It's absolute. And it will fuck your shit up.
Yeah.
And even getting away from it, it'll fuck your shit up. Oh yes, mama. It's nothing to fuck around with. It is the body of Set, my god. And at the eye of it is Heru, right? Perfect view down the center of this swirling insanity, right? Where it's perfectly still. Kind of awesome. Anyways, so no one is wrong. It's really about how much tread do you get on the road? How many miles do you get out of that gallon? How much returns do you get from that tax file? Right? So if just drawing a glyph gets you actual results, awesome. I have found in my practice of witchcraft that the more you layer on your own personal set of symbols, the more effective the work is. So if you tap into your own personal store of these are symbols for, oh, I really want peace in my life. The most peaceful person I ever knew was my gram. And my grandma had this comb, and I was fascinated by that comb when I was a kid. So I'm going to work that comb design into, yes, correct, mama.
So I don't have to worry about if I see something that inspires me, that's fine. But I don't have a set of rules that I
The only
have to
rule for,
follow.
that's right. The only rule for this class is the number of lines on the page.
Right.
Period. And that's the only rule other than that you're casting it and you cast it in this way. Period. The results are all yours. And is there a wrong way? Jackie, you're not going to open a portal to hell if you do it wrong. It's awesome. The Jade, when she was first tasked with casting the circle for her first coven, was terrified of opening the portal to hell if she did it wrong. So she became punctilious about making sure that the details of the ritual protocol were followed to the letter. So that no one could ever say, did that.
So
Well,
let's say we did this
she
drawing.
did well.
You
Yep.
know, I do this sigil drawing. Then my actual intention of what I'm asking for is the actual spell.
Yeah. That's
okay.
right.
See, that makes a little bit more sense now.
Yep. Whatever you had before, chuck it. Try this new concept. Because this new concept is actually closer to what I'm trying to get for you. The meditational portion, 8 concepts of 8, systems of 8, the Tao Te Ching and its glyphs, the Wheel of the Year and its holidays, the 8 spokes of yoga, and the 8 spokes of magical practice. All of these are just concepts to layer on and give you something to build. It's like giving you a bunch of Lincoln logs, right? Saying, go build it. Here's a bunch of sets over here. They built this and this and this and this and this, and this culture built this, and this culture built that, and this culture built this other thing. And they all are used for magic. Do any of them inspire you? Do you like any of them? Right? I throw everything at you, right? I throw different alphabets at you. We looked at a bunch of different alphabets, right? What kind of alphabet do you like? That'll teach you what kind of line you want to put on the page. So far, you've gone with very fluid and organic lines, right? I go with hard but always hard, right? It's like Tina Turner, right? She doesn't have a soft switch. No, she's gonna give it to you. Oh yeah. How so, she like it?
Is there like sigils in Native American beliefs?
There are some. Right. So as far as Native American practice is concerned, they do use symbol sets that are similar, where they are combinable to create sort of a standardized meaning-ish. Let me share with you. So this that I got in Santa Fe for my birthday, right? Very lovely. Covered in diamonds, right? They aren't diamonds. If we look on the back, we find the truth and the true meaning. They're actually, see those, what look like diamonds in there, but if you look closer, it looks like a conch belt. For his tribe and many of the tribes in that area, that design represents a guiding star. There are 4 of them for each of the 4 directions. And in between each of those is, if you can, I don't know if you can see it, that dimple spiral. Is a spiral, meaning the intent, the sigilistic intent behind this is that you would have a guiding star in each of the 4 directions you travel in life.
Okay.
With his signature stamp as well. And this is an outward design that nobody is going to question nor think is native, nor give away the secret that only you will know.
Okay.
So do they use them? Yeah, I have one right here. I love it. I got it for my birthday last year. Thank you, Jade. It was expensive. It's worth it. And I wear it all the time. And does he have a sigil? Yeah, pretty much. So now, would they say that they do this that we're doing?
No.
They would not. Do they understand the idea of raising energy towards an intent or prayer? Yep, they sure do.
Yeah.
They also understand using symbols and symbol sets to create those intents, or at least, remember I told you this, pour water through a vessel and shape the water. See how, are you seeing all this?
I am.
You feeling all this, Jackie?
That's
It
where you get the
all,
sigil.
it all comes together. It really does. Into a pronoia perspective on the universe that you yourself have a direct plug into manipulating, changing your future, your present, your past through simple focus, attention, intention, and appeal to the universe. The universe has no choice but to prove to you anything and everything that you believe strongly is true about it. Period. We are the crafters of our lives. Doesn't mean that shit doesn't happen, because shit sure fucking happens. But who we are in the face of the challenge is crafted by us. So that pronoic view is certainly also woven into like a native view, because it is. They have their own ideas of, who the divine are. Thank God they're at least animistic and see the earth herself as our mother. Thank you very much. Whose back we walk upon. Thank you very much. And who feeds us and gives us air to breathe and water to drink. Yes, mama. Yes, mama. Yes. Just yes. They're on the right route. Not this bullshit that you don't get to see the true face of the divine until you're fucking dead, where you can't make a difference. Oh, so you just got off the hook now, did you? Flip the script on that, did you? Yeah. This kind of twisting of narrative logic that leads to bullshit, what is called by psychologists magical thinking, oddly enough, not inclusive of practice of actual magic, is this retarded view that if you think it, it's true. It's not. It's not. It's not. You can think that the sky is going to turn green 1,000 years every single minute, and it's not going to fucking turn green. So institutionalized religions like doing this because they really like wrapping people. They like power over, right? And so they manipulate narratives to create these conundrums that are not overcomable. And then they say, fall back on your faith, meaning belief system. And then they inculcate, right? Just like the Russians did to destabilize the Ukraine. Hounded their people with a mis and disinformation campaign and triggered revolution from the ground up simply by reiterating falsehoods. Oh, we just had a president like that. Mama, does he know he's using magic? Nope. Sure don't.
Or is that the magic?
That's right. And there are some thinkers, Crowley was one of them, who believe in archons, which are like negative aspects of the universe that are well enough organized that they can be meaningful, independent drivers of change in the manifest universe, and they work through conscious agents like us on the verge of a sleep. Fugue or trance state. Yeah, and they do shit like this, right? And the more powerful the archon, the more damage they can do. Yeah, and all part of, really, if we really look at it, the Greeks were talking about this in the sense of Eros and Thanatos and their complex relationship with each other, as expressed also in their mythologies, right? You can look them up. Thanatos, the death instinct, and Eros, the love instinct. But it was more than just love. It was taking more primitive, more basic structures and using them to create more complex ones. Whereas Thanatos was most exemplared by the devotees of Dionysius, who believed in sparagmos, or the rending of flesh from the body. Oh yes, mama. Cannibals. Catch them, tear them apart, eat them up. Dionysius worshippers. Mm-hmm. They were exemplars of Thanatos, the death instinct. It's not surprising that a comic book author at some point later in history chose Thanatos, right? Who wants to kill half the global population? Yep. Wants to return. So Thanatos is not a death instinct in the sense of to kill everything or everyone. It is to return all things to a pre-organic state.
Or a new beginning.
That's right. To fuel new beginnings. Yep. Yep. And the Greeks saw in of course, the Dionysian tragedies, they saw codification of the faith system and mystical system wrapped around the idea that these two forces were divine twins, sacred others to each other, always doing a dance like this, and using conscious agents, humanity, to try and live out their power play. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
So that's class, kiddo.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, go do your rings of power and cast your sigils and change your life, girl.
Yes, I have to do that and get my moon water ready.
Good. I'm so glad.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome, honey. We'll see you next week.
All right.
I think we're on for next week, right?
Next
or
Friday.
No, I'm out. I'm out next week. That's right. So I think we skip a week this round. Let me check my calendar.
I think she has it on the 29th.
Yes, the next one is the 26th.
The 26th.
Yeah, that's right. We miss a week and then we bump forward. So the next one is the 26th, and then we continue every 8 days after that. I'm on vacation and out, and I'm not doing a class next week.
You know what? I think she has it listed the 29th too. I'll have to look at
29th?
Yeah.
Yeah, she has it incorrect. It's the 26th.
Okay.
That's incorrect. It's 26th. So I'll remind her, honey, remember, that's not it. It's 26th. So I'll remind her because it's the 26th, and then the next one is the 11th, and then the 19th, and then the 27th. And then likely the 4th. Yep, the 4th is online, the 12th, the 20th, the 28th, we're in September. October, we haven't scheduled yet. So that has to be approached when we get there.
Okay. So I know at least the 26th.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
The very next one is the 26th. It's not the 29th. That is incorrect.
I was all excited for the 29th because I have football on the 26th. So I might end up being a few minutes late then for the 26th.
Honey, that is perfectly fine. And really, you know, if you give me more runway, I won't be there till 8. I'll start the class at 8. I'm serious. I'm not kidding you.
Okay.
You're the only student here who is engaging directly with me. So guess what? You're my fucking student. So when you tell me on that day when you can make it, and I'll make it happen for you.
Okay. Thank you.
What? All right, kiddo.
Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.